What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the All Things Basketball podcast. I'm your host, Vic Lopez, as always, and it's time for the Portland Trail Blazers Deep Dive. I want to recommend a quick book if you're a Portland Trail Blazers fan. This is one that's taken me, I'm not going to lie, it's taken me forever to read this book. Honestly, it's gotten really good, and I think now I'm going to finally start getting through it. I'm like on page 100 only. And I've been trying to read this book for a very long time. So it's this really unique book if you're interested in like the history of basketball. And it touches into a lot of stuff that you still hear about today. Like the things that people complain about with contracts and reporting and journalism. You kind of see this stuff through the lens of like the 70s. And it just keeps going up in time. And yeah, I don't want to give up too much. But obviously, I mean, this book's been around forever. I think it's like a book from the 80s or something. And yeah. Anyways, let's get right to it. So same way as I've done a lot of other team deep dive pods, we're going to talk about the team data. I'm going to do my player thoughts. There's going to be some clips as I go through all of these players and also some critiques / questions at the end of the video. As always, it's going to be optimistic stuff. Let's start with the fact that the recent sample of games that I've watched are the Cavs, Suns, Grizzlies, Sixers, Timberwolves. And, you know, obviously some spotty games from just throughout the year that I've seen this team. So, look, they're 21st in offensive rating, all right? They're 18th in defensive efficiency, 30th in turnovers. Opponents are having a party scoring off of those Portland Trail Blazers turnovers. It's about 21.8 points a game just on their turnovers alone. So that's kind of oof. Three-pointers attempted. This team is third in attempted threes, and they're 29th in three-point percentage, so little yikes there, right? Rebounds, they're fifth. They're just this great offensive rebound team, hence the number one in second chance points. They're scoring 18.5 points a game, just obviously converting all those offensive rebounds. So, you know, definitely this kind of theme that we're seeing from a lot of teams now. It's this shift, which I'll talk about in a second. But so of the 56 games, Jrue's missed 29. Deni Avdija missed 10. Jerami Grant's missed 16 of them. Scoot literally just started his season. He's 4 games in. Rob Williams, that goes without saying, right? Just a guy that unfortunately misses a lot of time. Oh, and by the way, Billups gets arrested and Tiago Splitter is the current head coach. And so here they are fighting in a season where a loaded draft is making teams tank in the funniest ways. And they sit in the play-in tier of a loaded conference. And I'm just like, you know, I got to show respect to a team that has every reason in the world to try to tank, even though I feel like they're just too good to do that. And here they are just fighting to get wins, right? 27 and 29, 9th in the conference. And so it's just an impressive accomplishment so far because of all those things I just laid out, right? And so let's move on, right? I want to get to the player portion of this, right? Because I have a ton. I mean, look at this. I've got, I think it's 19 or 20 pages of just notes of me just writing a bunch of stuff down. So Deni Avdija, he's having the best season of his career. He's at 25.2 points, 7 rebounds, 6.6 assists, and he's excellent at drawing fouls and finishing through contact. He's number 1 in drives, I mean, which doesn't take long for you to figure that out when you just watch even just one Deni Avdija game. This guy is a driving machine. And he's third in free throw attempts, taking about 9.4 a game. His ability to stay in control while getting downhill in traffic is special. You know, he always seems calculated in what he decides to do. And he just has this great reaction time and just awesome counters when defenders step up to him. And so playing with that change of pace and direction, along with the deceleration on his way to the rim, while he's absorbing contact without any problems because this guy is just so strong. And I just love that he leverages all of the parts of that game to then get the teammates involved, right? Because at the end of the day, like you could have all this gravity, but if you're also not leveraging that to make your team better, it's going to limit you as a player. Right? And so Deni really leverages all these skills that he has to get teammates into good opportunities. And so when you're getting these Clingan, Deni Avdija pick and rolls, Deni is 6'8". Clingan is also incredibly tall. And so these pick and rolls, like they force the opposing big to have to honor Clingan rolling right? And then Deni just sees over most perimeter defenders because of that height, and he just makes the pass look so easy to Clingan or whoever's diving to the basket. And so it draws additional help away from other players to try to just contain that pick and roll alone, even if Deni Avdija can't really shoot it from outside yet. And so it's just this constant paint pressure that they put on these opposing defenses, and he'll just kick it out and get it to an open teammate, right? Are these teammates knocking down threes at an elite clip? No, but they are getting really good looks because of these drives and paint touches and kickouts. And so look, a similar looking pick and roll, and this time it's Jakob Poeltl, right? He's got to be higher up, and so quickly has to tag Clingan, and he's pointing for Ingram to also help. And all of a sudden it's this three-man collapse, and Toumani Camara, who has really displayed the three-point shooting, is wide open for three on that play. And so it's just this, like I said, it's just this constant decision of, okay, pick and roll with my big man. If he's not available, I've got some escape valves, right? Some guys that are open in just these half seconds where extra defenders are being asked to really help and protect the paint, because Deni's just such a good finisher. He's also a very good passer. He's got really good height to be able to get the line of sight to find where to throw that ball. And all of a sudden, it's just a very complicated action to guard. Just a simple pick and roll with Deni and whoever the big is, whether it's Rob Williams or if he's getting these guard screens, right? Like that just kind of throws different looks at the defense. And so look, there's one where quickly blitzes Deni Avdija in the pick and roll. And what I like about Deni is he's unfazed. Like he's just in complete control. The dribble stays alive until he finds an open teammate, which was Chris Murray on one of those clips. And it's a wide open three, right? Just from his patience, not feeling the pressure of the defense, and just keeping it alive until the last second. And look, Deni is also just very difficult to deal with coming off of pin downs, because one late reaction where you're caught now chasing from behind, that forces a help defender to now step up away from the screener. And that's where you get those little lobs. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what are we going to do? Because if I play in ball denial, Deni's going to back cut, and it's just an easy finish if they can find him cutting to the basket. If I am late on that off ball like screen for Deni, like I said, you're chasing from behind, and now you're late on the play, and now the help defense is trying to show to plug on that, and they just find easy baskets out of that. So look, Deni is such a good driver that whenever he has a clear mismatch, I've seen actions where a teammate screens their own man to prevent a help switch, right? And he either scores or he finds the available teammate after a blow by. It's like, instead of settling for, okay, cool, you've got a bad matchup on you, let's kind of clear out and let you isolate. No, I'm going to actually screen my own man, because I know that eventually you're going to get by that bad defender, and my man is going to help and switch. I'll just take him out of that rotation, and then you just have a free line drive to the basket. And that's where he gets those lob passes. That's where he gets those finishes at the rim. And it's just that really interesting little action that they will run for Deni at times. And so look, in the pick and rolls, he has the height, like I said, to make the skip passes to the corner man if the low man is tagging. And all of a sudden, this guy just solves a lot of problems. And it's no surprise why this guy's an all-star this year. And just an absolute banger trade, right, for the Portland Trail Blazers that has really paid off for them. And so Deni has a stretch of games where he's out for lower back soreness, and then he comes back and he goes 38-8. And I'm just like, all right, this guy is awesome. And he misses 4 games due to the back, returns to the lineup, and he drops 26, 10, and 8. Deni Avdija is special, okay? Now, I want to move on to Shaedon Sharpe, okay? It's his 4th season. And people forget that he didn't play college basketball. Like, he just sat out that year, and then he just went straight to the draft. He turns 23 in May. He has the highest usage rate on the team at 29.3%. Now, here's an interesting side-by-side to kind of have some nice context about where Shaedon Sharpe kind of is at the moment. All right, and so look, here's a little hint before I show the player. He's 30 years old. A lot of people made the case for all-star for this player. He is averaging 21.2 points per game, 34.3% from 3, 3.7 rebounds. He's got the 1.8 assists and the 1.1 steals, right? Good stat line. So pause this video if you're trying to take a guess, because I'm just going to show him right now, and it's Dillon Brooks, right? Now, Shaedon Sharpe at 22 years old, 21.4 points per game on 45.6% from the field. He's 34% from three, 2.6 assists with the 1.4 steals. So similar numbers here, right? And obviously Dillon Brooks, the much better defensive player. He's a veteran, all that good stuff, right? So these are two very different players, stylistically speaking, and they contribute in a lot of different ways. But I'm just saying, like, when you compare kind of where the numbers are for him right now as a 22-year-old with no college basketball experience, and, you know, this guy that's like very young right now still has a lot of potential, which he shows it often. And look, I think that this is something you should be really optimistic about because he's got a lot of room to grow as a basketball player. And frankly, I think he's on a pretty damn good deal now for the type of expectation that you have for this kind of guy, right? And so when you have high expectations for a player, the player can easily feel disappointing, right? Because you have this incredible bar that you set because of the things you see that he does. And when he doesn't meet that bar every single night, or he kind of shows like these moments where you're just like, man, I don't know, you're easily turned off by that if you have those insane expectations. But the Trailblazers should be very patient with this guy because he just shows you the insane potential that he has, and there really isn't a lot that he has to fix to become that player. And so his outside shooting is really up and down, right? Like, he loves the mid-range, but he's not efficient at it. Like, he really tries to go for that mid-range area, like snaking the screens and trying to step back and pull up, and it's just not falling. You know, he's shooting 33.3% right now from the mid-range. And look, his handle isn't perfect. He does lose it a bit when there's some ball pressure. He'll try a little bit of extra moves sometimes and he'll lose it, and then he'll pick it back up and, you know, try some tough shots here and there. And so that needs a little bit of fixing, obviously some touching up. But I still do think his handle's relatively tight given what I just said. His rim finishing is obviously the special thing about him. Like, this dude is just so talented. He has freakish athleticism for a guard, and there's moments where he just flies into rim protectors. He has these insane acrobatic finishes, and there's times where he lands on the floor so hard that I'm just like, holy shit. Like, is he good? Like, I'm actually holding my breath because I'm like, I think he might have just gotten injured from how hard he falls to the ground because of how high up he gets and the contact he absorbs before actually converting on the play, which is just incredibly impressive. And so he doesn't shy away from contact, which is something that you really like to see from a guard. He can catch lobs. He can get by guys without the help of a screen, which is a very underrated skill. I don't think a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff. He has no problems creating his own shots. Right now, yes, the shots are like the shot making is up and down. It's not all that efficient, but you can see that he creates the separation. You can see that he gets the shot that he wants. It's just not going in. And, you know, once he kind of figures that out, he gets a little bit stronger because I do think he needs to get stronger for a lot of the shots that he likes to take to start going in a little more often. Like, once he gets stronger, I think that's going to really help him. I do believe he's a good passer that doesn't pass enough. This is a guy that, like I said, he can snake a screen, right? Put the defender in jail behind him. And I've seen him throw some nice passes. I just don't think he does it often enough. Similar to like when I was talking about Devin Booker in that Phoenix Suns deep dive, same kind of thing where you're like, man, he can really pass. But then you're like, man, why didn't he pass it there? You're like, he took that shot? Man, he should have passed it here. And yes, I'm watching from above with better angles and things like that, but I am not doing that with hindsight. Like, I'm talking about the plays where I've seen him make that pass and he didn't make the pass this time and opted for a tough shot, right? Or he turns it over because he's just doing too much sometimes. You could just see the skill is there. The passing ability is absolutely there. Like, he will find guys with the right timing, and it's just like, wow, this guy can really display playmaking abilities via scoring, which is something that a lot of special scorers can do as long as they can leverage that, kind of like I talked about with Deni Avdija. And so if he can get the three ball to fall, like, the sky's the limit for this kind of player. And defensively, obviously, like, he's got a long way to go, right? He definitely has a long way to go in terms of defense. He tries, you know, but he's just not a good defender right now, okay? Now, if you think otherwise, You can leave something in the comments. Let me know what you think. I think that that's definitely a big weakness of his. But like I said, he's young. He's playing a really tough position, especially with all the usage, right? Like, it's just a lot to ask of a young player. But I think they've got to be really patient with Shaedon Sharpe, man. I mean, this guy's got insane amounts of potential. And I'm seeing some people are like off the boat already. Some people are like, we should probably trade him. You know, we kind of swung and we missed in the draft. Hold your horses. All right, like, this is the Portland Trail Blazers, right? Like, you don't exactly get whoever you want, and you're kind of in win now mode, and he looks like a damn special, gifted player that you want to take a chance on. All right, so moving on to the next guy, Jrue Holiday. Interesting guy, right? Like, I was thinking, how long is this guy going to be here? You know, because you think, you know, at the age, he's 35 years old, and, you know, you need vets on a young team regardless, right? Like, that helps your players just learn the game, right? Like, a lot is said about how important veterans are, especially the ones that can actually still play, right? Not the ones that are just sitting on the bench, because those guys kind of, whatever they tell you, it probably falls on deaf ears if you're not a guy that's out there leading by example, right? If you can actually hoop. And Jrue Holiday absolutely can still hoop. He's still a two-way player. He is one of their better shooters, and he's a rock-solid point guard at his age with the championship experience in multiple places, right? So that's always very valuable. Now, I will say this. He makes a huge impact at the defensive end still, which is very impressive for a guard his age. Offensively speaking, I feel like he is just way too trigger happy. You know, I really feel like he got loose with the trigger from his time in Boston. Like, that's when I really noticed, like, oh, he has completely bought into this three-point chucking strategy, right? Which obviously worked out. They won the championship. You know, he really let it fly in Boston. And he took a lot of shots that I was like, man, he's taking that one, with all that time left in the shot clock, up in transition, contested step-back threes, and he has kind of brought that to Portland. Now, to be fair to Jrue, right? I mean, Portland needs the offense that Jrue can provide, right? Really badly. Obviously, they've got Deni and they've got some other guys that are helping, but, you know, they've needed his offense, right? If you just want to leave it at that. And so, you know, he does take care of the basketball, which is very important because it's a team that turns it over a lot, you know, so that's valuable. He can get into that paint and he's going to grab rebounds. Like, this guy comes up with a lot of offensive boards that you're just like, I don't know how he got to it. And it's just the scrappiness, the know-how, the will to get after the loose balls, and just the desire for the second chance points and scrapping for that extra possession. Like, that's the reason he's had such an incredible career. Like, this is a guy that's been in the Olympics, made an impact, won gold, and like really played serious time for the Olympic team. And like, look, man, like, he's just a great vet to have on this team, right? Like, money and age aside, I think he's been good for this team. Let's move on to Toumani Camara. Third season, he turns 26 in May, 52nd pick. Okay. Portland sneakily acquired him, right? He was like this throw-in in that DeAndre Ayton trade. We've probably said, you know, everything's been said about that trade regarding Toumani Camara for sure. All defense already. Second team in the second season he played, which is just unbelievable. He's just a guy that you can assign on almost any player, any position, and feel good about the outcome. Like, there is some KD stuff in here where it's like, okay, you can't stop Durant, but you can at least try to make his job as difficult as possible. And two, just does a good job of taking the hits and staying physical without fouling, if at all possible, and just bothering the shots, right, from all these kinds of players. And he can play in full ball denial. He gets really skinny to navigate around those screens. And even if he does get hit by the screens, like, he just quickly gets back into the play. And there's times where, like, he's out of position, and because he has this great length, he can really make up for that lost ground and try to still get into that contest range, right? And so, like, there's clips where he's against Anthony Edwards, and it's like, with this height advantage that he has over a lot of these elite perimeter scorers, he also has a nice safety net with Clingan behind him, right? I mean, that's always something that plays into the formula of trying to be a really good defensive team is, do you have good rim protection behind you? Because if you're doing great on the ball, in that slight, mishap or where a better offensive player is just going to get by you a lot of the times. This is the NBA, right? You're not going to stop these guys every time. You still have that added resistance behind you to also, help your defensive job get a little easier, right? And so that's something that I really value, obviously, out of Donovan Clingan on this team. And so there's clips with Paolo where you also see his ability to play against these more physical bruiser type guys that aren't shot makers, right? And more like bucket getting types of guys through the physicality. And, he could just do damage when he's in help, right? Like with Toumani, like he could either just get deflections being in the gaps or just come over and block shots in help defense, right? In really nice ways to keep the ball in play and, get fast break points in transition. And so he can really deal with those bruiser types. There's clips against Jaylen Brown, right? Another physical guy that has good shot creation and obviously the ability to finish at the rim against anyone. And he just gets really pesky with his physicality off the ball. And he draws a lot of offensive fouls on his opponents with the ball because they're just so frustrated with how handsy and physical he is. And I think that's another underrated thing about Toumani Camara. He really forces offensive players into some annoying fouls. Look, he's also good at avoiding being put in jail, which you can see from some of these Jaylen Brown clips. He'll be out of the play because he gets hit by a screen or he's kind of trying to thin his way through it. And the player is spending a couple of seconds trying to snake the screen and keep him out of the play, trying to put him in jail. And he does this really sneaky thing where he's trying to also avoid the contact from getting hit by the offensive player's back. And just that split second of the offensive player trying to find him with that back contact, trying to put him in jail, he actually is able to get back into the play and contest shots. And that little niche thing that he's able to do on defense is another thing that makes him such a valuable defender. And so he has great anticipation, leaving a double team and then staying in a passing lane to kind of go for some of those steals. He just constantly shows the combination of eyes on the ball, eyes on his man, and knowing where it's likely going to go. Right? That's another thing, right? A lot of that stuff is just intuition, right? Going with his gut. And so he just consistently shows that stuff. He really does a good job of applying the ball pressure, giving good contact, right, on those drives, and still having the great timing to swipe down while the guy is about to go up with the ball. And that's the stuff that has really just highlighted itself, right? Because we know this guy's a great defender. And then there's the evolving three-point shot. Right? He's leading the team in three-pointers attempted. He's taking 7 threes a game, and he's at 37% from three. And look, on pull-up threes, he's shooting 40%, which is very impressive. And he takes a decent amount of step-back threes, which I'm they're not really going in. He's shooting 20.8% from those step-back threes, and oddly, not a good corner three-point shooter. Right? You often see guys really able to shoot from the corners, but he's 29.8% from the both corners combined. And then above the break, he's 40% from three. So it's really showing the development from the three-point shooting. I like that Portland's you know what, man? Yes. Are we making all these threes? No. But do we want to see some development? How else are we going to see it if we're not taking all these threes? And I feel like I'm contradicting myself when I get to the ending of this pod. But nonetheless, let's move on. So Jerami Grant. This is a difficult player for me to talk about because he's this do-it-all guy that doesn't do it all great, right? He's not necessarily great at anything, if I could be fair in saying that, but he does a little bit of everything. And so it's he's always in these trade rumors, but obviously because of what he makes, it gets tricky, especially with all the apron stuff. And so he's one of their better three-point shooters, which honestly says a lot about their three-point struggles. He's interesting because he's a guy that can play multiple positions, right? He could just switch onto multiple people because of the length and just the height, right? The build. He's also very strong. And it's man, he can defend on some possessions. And then there's other possessions where I'm oof, what was that blow by, man? What was that? And so it's just this underwhelming watch a lot of the time where he can randomly score 30, right? Which he has done a few times this season. He just feels inconsistent. And then at 31 years old, this is probably as good as it gets for Jerami Grant, right? And so he's obviously been one of their better players, but he gets into these great scoring stretches that then remind you why he got the contract to begin with. And then, and then he kind of reverts back to, what can we get for this guy, right? Like on the trading block. And so he's just this interesting player that's just been here forever. I want to move on. Donovan Clingan, aka Kling Kong, which I think is one of the coolest nicknames in the league. They also call him DC, just his initials. Now, he turns 22 this month, only in his second season. And it's like, not only has he improved with the more playing time and the volume and the reps, he's also shown that he's been working on the outside shot. Clingan took 9 threes over the 2 years he played in college. And I have it in my notes, he's taken 159 threes this season alone. And he's sitting at 32.1%, right? Now, like, most of them are obviously going to be wide open looks. Some of them are late contests, right? Some of them are heat checky where he's like, you're in my face. Let me try it. And look, you got to start somewhere. And growth is not linear, especially for bigs that were never known as shooters. And so I actually like his mechanics. Eventually, he may need to get rid of it sooner, which I do see it when he's seeing a late contest or like a closeout. He does get rid of it a little quicker. And so nothing looks bad to me mechanically. I really like how the shot looks. I'm not this like shooting coach or anything like that. I do know some of the things that make a bad shot, some of the things that can make a shot actually work. And so I feel like his mechanics are actually pretty damn nice. You guys can let me know if you think otherwise. But look, the league has gone from no crashing offensive rebounds to crashing again, right? To find extra possessions. And this strategic change has really helped him be relevant in the league, right? So it's like right on time he gets drafted during this shift in strategy on offense, right? Like, obviously there's teams that still won't prioritize crashing offensive boards, but we've seen a big shift in that idea now. Teams fighting for more possessions and things like that. And so he's this rebounding monster, right, that leads the league in offensive rebounds. He totals 244, which is a huge cut above the next guy, right, which is Rudy Gobert at 202, right? And so just overall rebounds a game at third, right? 11.5 rebounds. And it's just like, man, he is really good at the stuff that we knew he was already really good at, which, look, not everyone shows that what they're good in college, they're going to be good at in the NBA. And it's nice to see that everything he was good at in college, he is displaying all of that here. Now I want to get to the Clingan defense part of this, right? Like, I don't think you can make a sound conclusion on a player's defensive ability by just looking at steals and blocks, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there that look at steals, look at blocks, and just determine, yeah, he's a good defender. Oh, he's just this elite defensive player getting all these steals, right? Like, there's more to it, right? Like, defense, it's probably the most difficult thing to evaluate because you really have to watch basketball games, right? Like, to make that evaluation. You can kind of get by with a lot of offensive data, and frankly, it is easier to quantify and just write things down statistically for offensive things, right? Whereas for defense, a lot of it's eye test, a lot of it is just viewing experience, a lot of it is watching opponent strategies, what the coach wants a player to be doing on defensive possessions. And so defense becomes this very difficult, methodical kind of area of analysis, right? And it's one that I'm also still learning as best as I can. And so, like, we have Clingan, who is like this exclusively drop coverage big, right? Like, right now, guarding on the perimeter, he has had some interesting moments where he blocks shots in the mid-range, blocks three-point shots. But then, like, obviously that his real strength is playing that drop, backing up, right? Late contest if he can get there, protect the rim as best as he can. And so there's moments where guys are killing him at the rim repeatedly. And this is a guy that can really protect the rim. When you're showing that you're very limited defensively in terms of like, no, I'm going to be this rim protector that just stays in drop coverage, but then there's moments where guys are scoring at you at the rim and in the paint, and it looks easy sometimes, like guys just blow by you because you're just not all that mobile. It starts to make people feel kind of weird about Donovan Clingan, right? And this is like all positions of guys going at Clingan, right? Like, there's guards going at him. And look, this is the NBA, all right? Like, even Wemby will get cooked in the paint sometimes, as crazy as that may sound, right? Not often, because this is a generational just defensive player in general. But look, man, like there's a 40-point Jarrett Allen game that I watched, and I was like, my goodness, for anyone that for any reason was watching that game and it was their first Donovan Clingan game, they're probably walking away thinking, elite rim protector? Donovan Clingan? I don't know about that. He's getting absolutely demolished by Jarrett Allen. And look, he had 4 blocks in that game. So it's like even in games where he's getting cooked, he's racking up some blocks. And so it's like he's literally a second-year player who's still one of the best shot-altering bigs in the entire league, which is a kind of a metric that you can't really find. Like, he really does alter shots, sometimes by just existing because of how massive this guy is and his reputation as a shot blocker. So it's like, you know, you see U-turns a lot of the time, and he's where the opponents are just like milking clock because they're trying to figure out, what are we doing? Like, we got by our guy. It could be Jrue Holiday, right, who's just putting all this ball pressure on you, or Toumani Camara, right, or Sidy Cissoko, who I'll get to in a little bit. And all of a sudden, you finally get by these guys, and here's Clingan just kind of hovering behind them. And just those little possessions that don't get put into the analytics, right, or at least regular box score stuff, and that's the stuff where he shines at too. It's like a very Rudy Gobert impact where people are seeing the flaws because the flaws are very visible, but they're also not appreciating the defense that's being played, even if you can't quantify it, right? Like, it's something you just got to watch. And so he will improve his use of his angles as time passes, like in these awkward situations, right? Like, he will learn player tendencies as time goes on, right? Like, this is a second-year guy that has a lot of room to grow. And he's a strong screen setter that can really pass the ball, right? I've enjoyed watching him pass the ball. He turns a lot of his offensive rebounds into points for other teammates, right? Like, it's not just him scoring on putbacks. He's turning this into some assists, right? Like, he's generating points for teammates by kicking it back out during those crazy crashes. And so that's a nice thing that he does. And he's not this polished post scorer, but he does demand attention on the rolls and on his paint catches because of his size. And so he does have a ton of gravity, right? Despite his offensive limitations. And so all in all, I think Clingan's been asked to do a lot. And his teammates aren't all exactly point of attack godly defenders, right? Like, yes, there's Toumani. Yes, there's Sidy Cissoko. Yes, there's a Blake Wesley out there, like doing nice things on defense, which I'll talk about. Jrue Holiday, obviously. And like a couple of other people that do try their best, right? It doesn't exactly look like they're making his job easy either, right? And so he's being tasked with like being in these 2-on-1 pick and roll scenarios that are basically impossible for a guy with his mobility and lack of NBA experience. And so there's a lot of times where it looks rough, right? And it could be a schematic thing that are putting him in some disadvantages. It could be just players being out of position in these pick and roll defensive situations, because it really looks like sometimes, man, the on-ball player is completely out of the play, and Clingan's stuck trying to clean that up. And it's rough, and he looks tired sometimes, even though you're going to look at some of the playing time and be like, well, he's not out here playing 40 minutes a game, and he's not this freakish athlete. But listen, man, this team plays incredibly fast, which I also think doesn't do him a lot of favors. And so you're also asking him to run up and down the floor, set screens, run offense, go grab offensive rebounds. Please block these shots. Please protect the rim. Please grab all these defensive rebounds. Be in help. Be in the proper place in rotation. And it's a lot to ask for a second-year guy. And so I am very impressed with Donovan Clingan, and I think you guys should be very happy with him as well. I feel like I spent a lot of time on him. Scoot Henderson, 3rd season. He just turned 22. I remain a stockholder. I was super high on him pre-draft. In fact, I'm not going to lie, I haven't even wavered on this guy at all through these seasons he's been in the league so far. Yeah, there's been injuries. Yeah, he's looked a little bit rough. Yeah, he looks like he's going to be probably going to take a little more time. He looks like he's probably going to be a late bloomer. I was of the mindset, and I'm going to admit it, I don't care, I'm transparent, I thought that this was the clear-cut next pick over Brandon Miller. And look, I think it's still too soon to say one's better than the other. You could say right now, confidently, Brandon Miller's the better player. I think it's fine if you say that. Now, I will say this, like I said, I haven't even slightly lowered my belief in Scoot Henderson. All right, now look, there's just too much to like about him. And frankly, we're not looking at many things that he has to fix to become a great guard. You obviously love the guys that can shoot off the dribble, right? Like you need that, especially a guy that's going to have high usage. He's going to have the ball in his hands often. He's playing the guard position, right? But I think there has to be foundational reps when it comes to shooting. Like, I don't think that you can all of a sudden implement and attempt all of these different kinds of shooting spots or shot types, right? Like step backs and contested threes and pull-up threes and sidestep threes and just all these kinds of shots. I feel like you have to build a foundation of shooting, especially when we know that coming into this draft, that was a big weakness of his, which was being able to shoot from outside. And so I feel like build a comfort level with catch and shoot threes, right? Like, unless the shot clock's winding down and you have no choice. But it's like, master the catch and shoot three, right? Like, that'll start making defenders close out on you hard, right? When you're catching on these like rotational kickouts, right? From your teammates driving to the basket and doing those kickouts. Like, just master the catch and shoot three, right? And then from there, you kind of work your way up into other levels of shooting from outside, right? Because it'll keep the defense honest, right? I don't think he's a very good catch and shoot three-point shooter. But I will say this, like, I think the shot looks beautiful. Like, I really do. Like, I spent a lot of time looking at all of his shot attempts from this season, okay? And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, man, the shot looks good. Like, I don't see anything much wrong with it, other than it does feel like he's shooting at the peak of his jump. Now, this is a very strong player. That might not make much of a difference for him because of how strong this guy is, but I do feel like a lot of his shots are flat. Like, he hits the front of the rim often. Sometimes he's hitting straight back iron. Sometimes there's like a weird air ball, and it's like, I feel like it's that lack of letting it go on the way up, right? To get that extra oomph, that extra arc. And with time, obviously when you're shooting off the dribble and you're taking all these tough threes, those are the results also. I mean, these are tough shots, some of the ones that he's taking. And, there's open shots where he's letting it go a little late for my liking, right? I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that's just how I feel, right? But aside from shooting, right, I think he's definitely been disappointing defensively, right? Like, it just feels like his angles are bad. Like, he freezes up at times. It's just like it makes the opponent drives look too easy. Like, he'll be closing out sometimes on a guy. Like, even if it's in transition, like the transition defense stuff is rough to watch too. Like, I know it's a really niche thing to mention on this pod, and it's not something I can find clips for, unfortunately, with the way that NBA.com clips this stuff. But like, there's a lot of times where he's like upright, right? He's just standing up too straight, and he's like flat stance. And it's just like he's not giving a defender, like he's giving a defender multiple options, left, right, a lot of space, and then the defender just chooses. And it's like you have to dictate which way the offensive player can go, right? Or at least bait, like you're allowing something and then go and cut it off, right? Force an extra dribble. Show some, like, you got to contain the ball a little bit. And this guy, like, he's got the athleticism. He has the lateral quickness. He's got the strength, right, to be able to really be a good defender. And defense is about will. It's about IQ. It's about, obviously, you got to watch film as well, believe it or not, on being a defender, on your man. And, like, I just feel like he also tries to do too much. Like, he's trying to be all over the place on defense. Like, he's not even involved in the play, and he's, like, looking at it. He's ball watching. He's trying to be in that place, and then he loses track of his man, and then his man scores. Or it's, something bad just happens from him trying to, like, be everywhere. And so I admire his, like, desire to be everywhere to try to help. But a lot of times it just looks like a chicken with his head cut off, just like running around with no real mission, no goal, right? No real thought process behind, okay, what is my disadvantage by standing in this particular place while I'm not watching my man, right? Like, and it's just those little things that I noticed from him on the defensive end. Right. And so, those are the things that I'm like, man, he's got to be better defensively for sure. You can't be a lead guard and not be a good shooter. Right. And then also, be a little turnover prone as well. And also give up a lot defensively. Right. Like you've got to be solid defensively. And look, man, even with the turnovers, make no mistake, okay, he made an immediate impact on this team from the very first moment that he checked in this season. Like, man, he rips the ball away from G.G. Jackson and just kicks it ahead to Sidy Cissoko, and Sidy drops the foul, right? There's another one where his ability to just get in the paint is obviously very visible on that clip, and it's just like when he does it, he's making an effort to find the open guy. And he does it very often, right? He's got no issues getting a paint touch. This guy is a walking paint touch. No problem whatsoever. There's a play in transition where he's signaling to Clingan to keep running, and then he quickly throws it to Krejci for 3. A simple but well-timed pass, right? It's like knowing his personnel, right? He definitely knows his personnel, right? I got to give him that. Like, he knows Krejci likes those little walk-up threes, and he just quickly got it to him, right? And look, there's another one in transition where he's slowing down, and Jerami Grant's trailing on the play, and he gets it to him right in stride, and right there for an easy dunk, right? And it's just like, those are the little things, right? It's not these amazing flashy passes, but it's the timely ones. It's the smart ones. It's the quick decision ones, right? Nothing crazy, nothing like, oh my God, highlighty, but he gets the job done in that sense. And so there's a moment where he cuts to the paint, and right on the catch, he's anticipating the help defense, sinking in on his paint touch, and he throws a pump fake, and then he makes the safe pass to Sidy, who finishes the play with a nice finish there. And it's just like the little things that you see from Scoot, right? Off the ball, where I don't think he has a lot of strengths off the ball if he's not cutting to the basket on time, right? And if he's not able to knock down those open shots, because defenses are going to cheat away from him to help on other spots on the floor, and they're just going to late contest on him, right? And kind of force him to shoot. And so off the ball, he definitely has some work to do. But look, as a scorer in general, like, this is the part of the game that's exciting for him. And it's just like when he's in that chase action, right, which is a very favorable action for him, like coming off of handoffs, like where he just pitches it to his man and then he goes back to get downhill. There are a few players his age that are that fun to watch getting downhill to the rim, you know, for those nice dunks. And it's just the burst of speed with the first step. He's got the acrobatic finishes. The aggression is incredibly visible. The dog mentality, like, it's all there for Scoot Henderson. And he just has to get more reps. He has to stay healthy, and the rest is going to come for him. And defensively, like I said, it's going to take time. Moving on to Caleb Love. All right, like, for a guy that went undrafted, his confidence is admirable. Like, I really wonder if he's going to be able to contribute efficiently when he gets into realistic minutes, right? Like, I don't know if anyone's talked about that, because like everything you see, you know, people are really excited about the shot making, and just because he is just this difficult shot taker, difficult shot maker, undersized guard, right? And it's like, I want to see what he looks like when everyone's healthy and all the minutes are in place the way they're supposed to be, the way that the coaching staff has planned it to be, versus, oh, we need you, right? Because it's like, what does he look like when we don't need 10 field goal attempts from him every game, right? And, you know, what does that really look like for him? And I know he's an undrafted first-year player, but he turns 25 this year, right? So he's not exactly this super young rookie that they just picked up. And so, you know, he's this 6'3" guard that lives on Tough Shot Island. And it's like that combination is pretty rough. And then defensively, you see the effort. I don't think he's a great defender, actually. Like, I do see the effort. He's one of those guys that you're like, man, he's trying. You know, at least he's trying. You know, but he's also not this lockup kind of guy. And so it's like, you know, he's fun when he's hot. But then, like, for the most part, you're just like, you know, what does this look like with real playing time? Right? And, you know, that's enough on Caleb Love. So, one of my favorite players on this team, and it's Vite Krejci, a.k.a. Heat Czech, right? Because of, obviously, he's from the Czech Republic. That's an awesome nickname. Now, the only thing I hate about the Vite Krejci move is that Duop Reith had to be traded in the process, right, to get Vite Krejci. Like, I loved watching Duop Reith. I don't care if anyone that watches this video has no idea who I'm talking about, or they think I'm overrating Duop Reith. I loved watching that guy play. And I know that guy was a fan favorite. You could just tell. You know, the crowd energy when this guy would make a shot, any type of play this guy would make, and it was unfortunate to see him go. Now, I have talked about Krejci in past pods, more recently on the Hawks one I did a couple of months back. And so he's known as this shooter with really good size, but he's more than that. Like, yeah, 71% of his points come from threes. And yes, 92% of his buckets this season are from teammate assists, right? He's not exactly this, let me create a bucket for myself kind of guy, even though he does have that capability. But this is a very skilled 6'8" guy, right? Like, he's got a nice handle that he'll display either when he's in transition or when he's against those hard closeouts, right? Because they know he can shoot. And so he has this really smooth layup package that he'll break out at times. He's sneaky athletic, which you'll get to see on some dunks. And it's like, he's a really good passer that just makes quick decisions. He's got some flashy passes in the mix, but he also throws just the simple ones that need to be right, that need to be thrown at the right time, and he could just get that done. And so he doesn't rebound well for his height, and he makes up for his not solid enough man-to-man defense by using his intelligence, because he is a very smart player, as a team defender, right? Like, this is a guy that's like in the right place. Even though he gets beat, he peels properly. Like, he kind of knows after he makes a mistake, he knows where he's got to kind of go to recover and kind of hide himself in a way. And so I think that for $2.3 million this season, he is an incredibly valuable player. Moving on to Sidy Cissoko, a guy I swore would be a steal pre-draft. And when the Spurs took him, I was like, I'm a genius. San Antonio likes him too, you know? And he's this really late pick, comes from the G League Ignite, a team that I watched a lot before they shut down. And then, like, the Spurs give up on him. They trade him to the Kings. The Kings trade him to Washington. And then Washington waives him. And at that point, I'm like, look, no offense to the Wizards. I did a Wizards deep dive as well. But it's like, if you get waived by the Wizards, like if the Wizards don't like you, probably yikes, right? And it's like, here he is, literally impacting the game in ways that maybe even Portland didn't think he would. 24 games as a starter. He's been one of their better defenders. He is just all heart. He's super physical, active everywhere, insane effort. He's an absolute workhorse, and he looks like he got in way better shape too. Like, I remember when he was on the Spurs, he looked a little chubby. I'm not going to lie. He had a little body to him. And now he looks like he thinned out, but also built some muscle. And so, you know, he's just really strong. And on the drives, you can really see that strength. Like, he'll bump defenders out of the way and finish on those plays. There's some drives where I'm like bracing myself for a sloppy attempt. I'm like, oof, this is not going to be good. And then I'm like, all right, wow. He actually finished on that play. And so I think he's made his case to get a new contract. You know, I've been really happy with what he's been able to do, like kind of turn around his story, because it was looking like he was going on the way down, man. Like, it looked pretty depressing as probably one of the few Sidy Cissoko enjoyers, you know? And like, okay, so moving on to another guy that I was really high on pre-draft, and that's Blake Wesley. He's the first ever one and done Notre Dame basketball player, right? And it's like, there were plenty of red flags that I was hopeful he would solve. And the bad contact finishing, the poor shooting, the small frame at 6'4", he's 187 pounds coming into the draft. I had every reason to be skeptical of this guy. And I just loved his story. Like, I was sold on this guy, to be honest. Like, this dude was a local kid coming off the bench in college. And after like a handful of games, he gets to start for the rest of the season. And that's how he built his draft stock. And he's unbelievably fast. He's got the 6'9" wingspan that you can clearly see, a clear history of just working against the odds, right? And another guy that made me feel right when the Spurs drafted him, right? Like Sidy Cissoko. I was like, they like him too. Clearly I'm onto something. And then the Spurs gave up. Same story. They trade him to the Wizards. The Wizards buy him out. And like Sissoko, here he is making a solid defensive impact, which is a funny story because they're so similar in that sense. He's this super energetic deflection machine, right? Scrapper, full court pressure, just energy nonstop, right? And you still see some of the struggles, right? When he tries to do too much, you're like, all right, man, come on, like dial it back a little bit. We really don't need you to be doing all this. That's when you start looking a little crazy again. And, you know, he does look like he bulked up, right? Similar to Sissoko, like there's a little bit of a body change here, right? And that happens with time. And so I have high hopes that he can secure another deal because, you know, you do see good things from Blake Wesley. Like he will use that speed, that insane speed that he shows every single night. Sometimes he plays a little too fast. And it's like, you know, he blows by his man. And his issue is he's not thinking score most of the time. Like he's really thinking, who do I give it to as soon as I get by my man? You could see that. I mean, the tendency is right there, right? And look, the contact finishing stuff, it's still problematic, right? Like you still see when he tries to go up on guys for layups around the rim, he just gets blocked in an ugly way, or the finish is rough and it's just a bad miss, or he goes out of bounds, it kind of turns it over. And there's still a lot of the weaknesses that made people skeptical of him in the draft to begin with. But make no mistake, like this guy's playing like he deserves to be a rotational backup kind of like team defensive guy that causes some problems and little by little kind of improving the outside shot making. But he does have a long way to go, but I have been really impressed with him. I think he's earned earned another contract with this team. Hopefully another team sees the same thing. Now moving on to the Rob Williams thing. If this guy could just not unfortunately get hurt so often, like he'd still be an all defensive level player. I don't think there's any debate about that. Now, the perimeter defense that this guy provides at center, along with the rim protection that we already know he has, believe it or not, the three-point shooting to go with that. I know it's a small sample size. He's 7 of 16 right now, 43% from three. Very small sample, but when he shoots it, I'm actually like, that's going to go in. You know what I mean? Like, it looks nice. It looks chill. He doesn't look like he's concerned. He's fully confident in letting it go, and it's going in right now, right? Like I said, few attempts. It's not a lot, but it looks good, right? And with how limited Clingan is as a defender, he provides that lineup flexibility, right? And that's what makes me wonder, what are they going to do with him moving forward, right? Like, what kind of contract is this guy going to command? And, you know, that kind of stuff is tricky because you're thinking about the big man depth on this team. And, like, yeah, they've got young Hansen, who's definitely going to take some time. They got Donovan Clingan, similar players in that they thrive in drop coverage more than anything else, defensively speaking. And it's like, here comes Rob Williams, who kind of throws it a little bit of a different look, right? Like, he can switch in the pick and rolls. He's up and he's blocking guys at the three-point line. He can protect the rim as well. He can move his feet and get in passing lanes and kind of make up for lost ground where guys are kind of messing up. He can kind of show up and clean stuff up. And it's like, I wonder what they're going to do with him, because it's like, how much are they willing to pay him? And this pod's getting really long, so I probably won't do the contract part at the end of this, because honestly, this pod has just gotten extremely long. And so, you know, I'm very interested to see where they go with the Rob Williams thing. Last but not least, my favorite Summer League player and one of my favorite draft stories is young Hansen. I did a young Hansen video. I'll put the link in the description below because that video got a lot of love. And I was just immediately in love with the player. Like, when I saw him play in Summer League, he's frankly the only reason that I will watch a Blazers game that's completely decided with like 3 minutes left in the game, you know, because in any other case, I'd be like, all right, that's it. But I'm waiting for young Hansen to get in the game, right? And look, it's been rough. I'm not going to lie to you guys. For anyone that has not watched that garbage time, it's been rough. But can I say this? I also don't like that they're throwing him in these rotations with all these guys. Well, there's some of these guys that are still trying to survive to get that next NBA contract, because those can be some really rough teammates to play next to if you're trying to develop your game, because they don't care that you're the lottery pick, right? They don't care that you are part of that future. Like, these players are trying to get that next contract. And if they're going to get garbage time, like 2 minutes to display a made shot here and there, a nice drive here and there, a good pass, a good defensive play, they're going to do everything they can to show that in the minuscule amount of playing time they get. And so I know it's garbage time. There's just like no choice but to play with guys like this, because you don't want to hurt main players in a blowout loss or a blowout win. And so that's kind of where he's been stuck. But like, I'm thinking, look, man, you're not contending for a championship. Let's just be honest with the Portland Trail Blazers. You're not competing this year for a title. So it's like, why not get a little more loose with the young Hansen minutes, right? Like, just throw him out there, man. Put him out there with the starters. Like, get him in there in some strong rotations and see what he's got, right? And I get he's extremely raw. Like, I am not going to sit here and tell you he's going to cook if you throw him out there, because look, there's moments in this garbage time where it's like 3 straight fouls in 3 minutes and it's a bad turnover. And it's like, you know, there's a travel here and there. It's just like, there's a lot of bad stuff that you see. But again, like, here's this guy that he's literally arrived to the other side of the world. It's a complete culture shock, let alone the change in league play style, right? He's learning the language. Like, it's just, and also, like, again, when he's in this garbage time playing with these rotational guys, a lot of these guys don't know how to play in pick and rolls. And like, if you're not looking to give it to Hansen and play off of him, and you're just looking to like score on your own, he's not going to help you, right? Because even defensively, he's not going to be there yet, right? Like, he may block a shot here and there if it's at the rim and like right in his face, and it's like a post-up possession, because all these line drives and pick and rolls, and he's just like trying to survive and drop coverage with bad defensive players around him because it's garbage time, guys. You know, it gets rough for young Hansen very quickly. And so, you know, you look at the G League stuff, which is where you're going to get the biggest sample. And look, he's got a 22, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks game against OKC Blue, right? He's averaging 18.3 points on 52% from the field, 20% from three, small sample. It's a 3-game sample in the G League. 83% from the free throw line. He's got good touch on the shot. 10 rebounds, 2 assists, the 1.7 blocks, the 4.7 turnovers are rough. And then, there's obviously the foul trouble there. But again, it's going to take time for a guy like young Hansen. I think that when you have a guy like this that can really pass the ball, incredibly unselfish teammate, you got to use him with his strengths, right? You can't just put him in this role of, look, man, just set screens, bro. Just set screens. We're going to play around that. Yes, he will set good screens because he's massive. He'll create a lot of separation for a lot of these players. But again, some of these guys are rushing in this pick and roll. They're not even giving him time to set the screen. They're there's a couple of plays where Blake Wesley's like, all right, come up and set the screen. Come up and set the screen. And young Hansen's lumbering over, right? Because he's not that quick. And he's about to set it, and Blake Wesley just goes. And then he turns it over, just doing too much. And it's he's put in these difficult situations to begin with. And that's why I also think he's looked pretty bad. But again, this is a guy that's going to take some time. I would like to see him utilized a lot more towards the end of the season. But yeah, not a lot to talk about with young Hansen, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll get more, tape on him and I can do some videos in the future. Now, critiques, since I'm not going to do the contract part because this is extended way too much. Critiques / leaving thoughts, we'll put that. I'm not a fan of the 3-point chucking with how poorly this team shoots the ball from outside. Now, I understand the concept of the 3-point shooting, right? You generate a little bit of outside pressure, and then you can get downhill and kind of make things work, right? You also catch a nice heat wave, right? If the shooting variance is on your side. I just don't like the volume. I think it's too much. I think they're taking way too many threes. Now, I kind of wish that they were tanking, if it's fair for me to say, because the draft class is unbelievable. I'm sorry. I apologize to you Portland Trail Blazers fans that are going to watch this, hopefully. It's just a matter of fact, this draft is unbelievable. And look, this team's too good to tank. So, it is what it is. Is Thiago Splitter their guy? It's another question I have. I watched every single presser of those games from the recent stretch that I listed in the beginning, and I really like his matter-of-fact, kind of blunt personality in these pressers. Scoot Henderson's first game, they're like, man, first game back for Scoot. How did he do? And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was very impressed with his first game after missing all that time. And Thiago's like, it was good. He's all right. But he was, he's just this guy that's he'll be better type thing. So I like that for him. I just don't know, is he their guy in the future? Who knows? I also have a question, the ages on the team. The combination is interesting. You always want some vets mixed in with the young talent, right? You get a nice balance. But it's okay, you're in win now / win later timeline. But I feel like the gap in these ages is pretty damn big. You guys can, disagree with me if you want. I just feel man, there's some guys on this team that are old, or, there's a lot of guys that have had a lot of injuries throughout their career. And so the timelines are kind of strange. You're hoping that some guys break out, and maybe they're hoping that some of these young guys come along sooner, and maybe they have a contender because they have guys in a win now kind of window as well. But I just feel with some of these young guys that I talked about, Shaedon Sharpe may need a couple more seasons. Young Hansen is for sure going to need maybe 3 seasons, 4 seasons before you see a lot of special stuff out of him. Clingan has to come along, right? And then some other guys, that are just uncertain kind of players on this roster as well. And then by the time you know it, some of the guys that you really like right now are just too old, right, to help you in that run. And so, that's interesting to me, right? I don't know. You guys may disagree with me on that. That's just how I feel. The gap is kind of strange. It's a little wide, right? And I don't know. So, look, can they succeed? This is my final question on this team. Can they succeed at playing fast with future bigs like Hansen and Clingan? Because it's you already know these guys are not that mobile, right? And fast pace of play may not be sustainable for these guys. And it's you've got Rob Williams who can do it, but is he a part of the future plans? What are they going to do with his contract? Because I believe he expires this season. He's going to be commanding some money. I hope the Blazers are able to retain him on a good contract because he is incredibly helpful for them. He has been so good for the Trailblazers. And, there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of that big man depth. You've got 2 guys that are very similar in terms of the mobility and drop coverage stuff that I keep, kind of hammering on over and over. And you've got Rob Williams, who's the only other versatile big you've got. And so, you know, there's a lot of questions with this team, but I think you should be really optimistic about this team. And I've enjoyed watching this team. I'm going to continue to watch them throughout the season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. This is the All Things Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Vic Lopez, as always, and I will catch you guys on the next one.